The following podcast contains naughty language, things you wouldn't want your parents or your children to hear. But frankly, we don't give a
Thank you for joining us again. This is Paul Wilson.
And I'm Danny Voss.
And we really appreciate you listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast with us. Today I'm really excited. We have another sled puller here in the crew. I'd like to introduce Jimmy Hahn.
Jimmy, tell us about yourself, man.
Out of Ravenna, Ohio. Drove about 7 hours to get here today.
Jimmy, you're out of, Ravenna, Ohio?
Ravenna, Ohio.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Ravenna.
All right, Ravenna, Ohio. What do you do down there, buddy?
I actually work in Cleveland. I drive an hour back and forth each way to work. I'm a nuclear welder.
Wow.
A nuclear welder?
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah, no wonder why you're glowing. You got that aura about you.
Okay, cool. So Jimmy, I know you've been sled pulling for a while, man. Why don't you get started here, though? Tell us what got you started in diesel performance.
What got me initially started in diesel was I was probably 14 or 15. My grandfather needed a truck to tow his camper with, and he wanted to buy a V10 Dodge, and that just seemed like an awful idea. I didn't know anything about diesels then, but they seemed to be the way to go, so I convinced him to buy a 01 24 valve.
Oh, wow.
And it never really went anywhere. It's bone stock. I mean, it's a grandpa truck, but that's still what spiked my curiosity and got me going.
Okay.
Pardon the interruption. This is Nick with Calibrated Power Solutions. If you can appreciate the kind of advice that Paul and Danny are giving our listeners on this episode and would appreciate that kind of personalized advice, I would encourage you to check out calibratedpower.com and duramaxtuner.com, where you can get a hold of our guys and get that kind of personal attention 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. 815-568-7920. Back to the podcast.
Okay, so where'd you go from there? So you had Grandpa's truck around. I'd imagine it towed like a beast. It ran forever. All you did was change the oil and drive it, right?
Yeah, it's still around, leaks oil like a son of a bitch. Starting to blow out everywhere.
That's the old saying, though. If it's if you got a Cummins and it's not leaking, you don't have any oil.
So everywhere it sits, it leaves a spot, but it'll still fire up in the dead of winter and get you where you need to go. But then a buddy of mine had an 03 Cummins. He started sled pulling all the time. And then when I got of age where I could afford a newer truck, it was time to upgrade to a Cummins.
What'd you get started with?
The same truck I'm running today, my 06 Dodge.
The 06 Dodge.
And it's a good-looking truck, Paul. I mean, did you get a chance to really look at the thing?
Yeah, I mean, through the window. I didn't go out and get a real close-up on it. It is here today over at Calibrated Power on the dyno, doing some new testing for this year's setup and just kind of getting prepped for the season. But yeah, let's go through the progression here. So this truck's been around for a while. You have an 06. What year did you buy it? Do you remember?
I bought it in 2010. Had 63,000 miles on it, I think. It was a grandpa truck. Whoever owned it before me had some real ugly ass chrome on it. Just looked like hell, but taken care of and low miles, so I could tell it was the one to buy.
That is low miles.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a score when you can find them like that.
It was a slow progression because when I bought it, it took all the money I was making to make the payments on it. So I think it took me a year to have a exhaust, a cold air, and a Smarty, and I thought that was just the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I always talk about how Rome wasn't built overnight. It's a progression. Like you said, you got to start somewhere and keep building off of it. And you even named the truck. What did you name the thing?
No sense left.
Obviously, having a double meaning there, that's pretty hilarious. Good job on that name.
I love it. Now I do think it's a funny point, too. I put a Smarty, an intake, and an exhaust. It was the baddest motherfucker I've ever driven, right?
Oh, it seemed like it was just the way to go. Compared to my grandpa's 24 valve, it was like, holy hell, this thing kicks ass.
But now...
And then
a
year after that, I burned the tranny up. Shocker.
No, I don't know what you mean. Those Cummins Transits are so reliable. Okay, so were you sled pulling with it when it went, or just out beating
I drove it for a year with the Smarty cranked up higher than they recommended on a stock trans, and I got the idea I wanted to sled pull it really bad one time because my buddy did it. I did it once, and I was hooked. I had to do it again, but on the way home from the first sled pull, it didn't know what gear it wanted to be in anymore, and I was just happy it got me home.
That's awesome. Okay. What kind of trans did you put in it?
I bought parts from Source Automotive out of Oregon and actually had my local tranny shop redo it for me.
All right.
Saved a bunch of money that way. At least I know transmissions now, it's a lot easier to just buy a unit altogether, but 4 years ago when I first put that trans in, it was a lot more to try and find a person that would build a complete tranny.
Right.
It was a lot cheaper and easier to buy what parts I wanted and have it done.
Yeah, it is. We do get spoiled with today's ease of getting parts, right? Like they're just so accessible. You could call probably 4 or 5 different shops these days and have something drop shipped or have a complete kit sent to you from that same company. You know, so exactly what they would do, just all their parts, and you find somebody to assemble. Okay. Did you end up doing all 3 shafts? I mean, building everything?
Even to this day. I last season I finally upgraded the output to a billet. But when I first built a trans, I did a triple disc converter, billet input, valve body, racing clutches, and that was it.
That's a wrap.
You know, they told me it would handle probably 900 horse, they said, as long as I wasn't drag racing, which at that point in time, that didn't interest me at all, so I wasn't really concerned with an output.
Right.
But now you drag race or what?
It's hit the track a few times.
Okay, good to hear. What kind of numbers are you turning in this thing?
When it had a work stock charger on it, it did a 1288 at 109, I think.
That's respectable.
That's awesome, man.
And then with the setup that's on it now, I did a 12.7 last year.
Nice.
And this is a pull truck. This is a 2.5 pull truck that's out on the drag strip, so I love to see that.
That's never me alone either.
Yeah.
The 12.7 was me and my girlfriend in the truck.
What does she weigh, 120 pounds?
The 1288 was with me and my 2 buddies. And then,
of course.
Then they told me if I came back with anybody in my back seat ever again, they weren't going to let me race.
They're not fond of that at the track.
No,
nobody a back.
No carnival rides.
It's a quad cab short bed on what, 35s?
35s,
with like a 3-inch lift.
Yeah, 3-inch lift. Last season I thought it would definitely do faster than a 12.7, but I smoked all 4 coming off the line, and those Duratracks do not hook up on asphalt.
Paul, did he do a 4-dig?
4-dig burnouts,
no,
bro.
No, he didn't.
4-dig burnouts. What,
wow.
You don't do 4-dig burnouts?
No.
It was a short-lived burnout because it started hopping really bad as soon as it broke all 4.
Yeah. We just always joke around about that. I still can't laugh enough about that line. A 4-dig burnout. It just sounds so impractical. Like, why are you doing that?
You got to beat it to have fun, Danny. That's why. Okay, so you had the built trans in it. You were stock turbo, stock injectors. You were having fun with the truck. You were on the road with it. You sled pulled with it still.
Yep.
Did you do a whole season with a stock turbo, stock fuel system?
Yeah, I did a whole season with it pretty much all stock, and there was one 06 LBZ that was kicking everybody's ass, and I wasn't okay with that. So that winter I think I did 125 horse industrial injectors and then the Cheetah turbo.
All right.
And I was stacking boxes then too. I had a TST Power Max on there.
We were talking about guys that stack chips, and working at the dealership, I'd see guys come in with like a Smarty, a box on top of that, and a box on top of that. I said, man, you got more chips than Frito-Lay. Like, what are you doing? Just stick with one tuner, for crying out loud.
And that, when I called Fleece, because I didn't even ask what kind of boost their turbo was supposed to make. I already had it on the truck, and I watched it make 55 PSI, and I was like, damn, that seems like a lot. So I called them, and they're like, yeah, it should only make 53, and anything higher than that, it's probably going to blow up. And they asked what I had done for tuning, and I said a Smarty and a TST, and they said take the TST off and throw it away. I was like, but come on, I mean, two's better than 1, so it can't be that bad.
They're killing us. Just killing us.
It's come so far, Paul, since then, right?
It has.
It really has. That was back in the day, back before EFI Live tuning was even available for 06 and 07 Cummins trucks.
2011 we're talking at this time, right? You bought the truck in 2010. You had it for a year stock.
It was 11 or 12, yeah.
11 or 12.
Beta testing.
Yeah, okay, beta testing, I guess, yeah. For for EFI Live.
Before it was released to the public. And
I think it was right around there. I mean, right? I mean, you had to. Did you buy it when
think it
EFI
was-
Live first came out, or was it out for a while and you heard about it? Because I know it's EFI Live 2 now.
You guys
obviously.
were out with it for probably 6 months or so, and then that's when you put on Facebook you're looking to sponsor somebody to tune their truck.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
right at around
It
that
was
time.
right around there.
Yeah.
All right.
But until you came out with it, I was just trying to get every ounce out of it that I could to beat that Duramax.
It's hard to hang with the LBZ, but on the other end, these Cummins trucks are hard to hang with because they can harness so much power dollar for dollar. It's just hard to even compare it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've always seen the Cummins produce better gains, especially with turbo systems, is really what I think the biggest deal is on them. Anything we put on there, we always see a little bit more than we would out of a Duramax as far as how much power we pick up.
Yeah, I got a buddy that has an 06 Cummins just like yours, and I have an 06 LBZ, and we did the same exact modifications, mod for mod. And then we were hanging, pretty close to each other, and then it wasn't long. He just surpassed me like nothing. It's easy for the Cummins guys to do that. It's all money and time.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain point with the Duramax, you got to build a bottom end pretty much. And that was, my friend had an LB7. That was his biggest thing that was holding him back. He really wanted to upgrade its turbo with your guys' turbo and injectors, but he just didn't want to spend all that money on the bottom end.
Yeah, the LB7 has probably the lowest tolerance for horsepower on the bottom end, right? As we get into the newer years, we know that the LMLs hold, a ton of power, that even the LBZs and LMMs, there are some out there that'll crack pistons, but they do it under stock power too, so it's more manufacturing. But okay, so you got off of stacking boxes, and we always recommend listeners not to stack boxes. There's a lot of reasons why. Number one, we don't know which box is controlling which parameter.
Yeah.
That's the biggest deal. I don't know if the edge is. I don't know if the TS chip is. I don't know if the Smarty is controlling the timing, which one's controlling the boost. And when you start crossing tables like that, you can get some really weird outcomes and you can have some really catastrophic failures. So I think that's why they had told you just throw that TST away. That's you're never going to need that. And back in the day, before EFI Live was out, Smarty is the best product on the market for Cummins hand down. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was nothing that ever got close to it until EFI Live hit the ground. Okay, so you got into EFI Live. You were still on stock injectors, stock CP3, built trans, or no, I'm sorry.
No, it had.
I'm sorry, the Fleece 125s or the industrial 125 horsepowers. The Fleece Charger, the Cheetah, right, the 63 mil stock CP3 pump.
No, I had a TNC diesel pump on it.
Okay,
which was very short lived because I went through a couple pumps from them, had nothing but problems, and just was tired of dealing with it. That's when I called Chris one day and I said I want the biggest CP3 you got. He said, well, you don't need the biggest one. I said I don't care. I'm tired of changing pumps. I don't want to have to deal with it anymore. Just whatever the biggest one is, put it in a box and send it my way.
So that would be the 12 millimeter Exergy stroker pump, which at the time was the biggest thing on the market. Yeah. They're doing some testing now. We're hearing about a 14 mil. Yeah. Pretty interested to see it.
When is that going to stop? I mean, where does that ever end?
I don't care. You know, the bigger the better, right? Like Jimmy said, if one's good, two's better, right?
Exactly. And more fuel, just cram it in there.
Okay, so we went to the 12 mil pump. What'd you put out for power, man? How'd you do?
With the work stock Charger on there, I did 687 and 1525, which then when I went back and pulled that season of work stock, it was pretty tough to beat.
Yeah. Did you take a lot of first places? I mean, did you pull the whole season? How many pulls were you getting done?
Pulled the whole season everywhere I could in work stock. I think I had probably 6 wins that year, 5 second place finishes, and like 3 third place finishes.
That's killing. That's the whole season, isn't it? Did you ever rank less than third?
No.
See, whenever I rank less than third, there's only 3 people in the class. I can't ever win when I go on. It's like I always have bad luck. But you're always chasing something. But it's just awesome that if you're a nuclear welder, if you're not welding, you're sounding like you're having a lot of fun over there in Ohio. So.
Oh, I love to beat on it. Any challenge, I even dirt dragged with it once just to see what it would do.
How'd it do?
It was a very unofficial dirt drag, and they didn't have a tree. It was just a girl out there with her hands in the air.
Oh, yeah, that sounds legit.
Those are the best.
And I did not get a chance to pull the turbo up, so I got my ass kicked. I got beat by 6'4". Pretty quick and easy.
You could have just not told that story.
Let's get real, though. I mean, I'll openly admit that I have got my ass handed to me by 6'4s. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'll
I mean,
admit it.
I guess if the motor can stay together long enough
That's
to
the
get through a
thing.
race,
They're usually not at the
they can
event the
make some
next
power,
month.
right.
They're going to beat me that day, but next month they're gone. They disappeared.
Going into that dirt drag, the kid knew he was going to beat me because they all knew who I was from sled pulling, and they said how it was going to go. The girl was going to stand down there and throw her arms down, and probably 15 people turned to me and started laughing because they knew I was not going to have a chance. They said you had about 5 seconds to spool up. Well, I'm out then. It's not going to get it.
Well, you have a purpose-built truck for what you want to do the most. So
Yeah.
But I like that, though. You can't be scared to get out there and have some fun
Exactly.
with it, right? I mean, it wasn't necessarily about lining up and kicking his ass. It was more just, I mean, like you said, I even went out and dirt drag it one time. Hey, why not?
just to say you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Drove it an hour there, drove it an hour home. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
The key is you drove it home.
Yeah.
That's a win. That's a win. I don't care what anybody says. To me, that's a win.
I hear you there. No questions. No question. Okay. So what does the future hold? What are we doing next, Jimmy?
It's probably going to need a built bottom end before anything. Right now, I'm surprised it hasn't shot a rod through the block yet.
You better knock on some wood.
Now you're stepping up into the next class this season. Is that right?
Ran 2.5 last year with it. Last year was the first time for a 2.5 class in our area.
Okay.
I was able to win the first 3, and then the same Duramax came out and won the next 10.
Wow.
He really dominated last year. Great running truck.
Yeah.
He's got it built by Danville, so he's got it dialed in just perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody chased him all season. I had
Were you
nothing but
losing
problems.
by 100 feet or losing by 2 feet, or was it close all season?
He
or?
was usually putting 10, 15 feet on everybody.
Wow.
And then your second to fifth place trucks were all real consistent,
Okay.
but he just annihilated.
Yeah.
Dominated it all. I like pulling against guys like that because it keeps you chasing them and it keeps you interested and motivated and keeps you online looking at the next part to buy.
Spending more money.
Never satisfied.
No sense left. That's where that came from.
That's right. No sense left. Love that.
I dig it. Where can people expect to see you this season? Do you pull with a certain class or?
Northeastern Ohio, Western Pennsylvania. Sometimes I'll make my way out to Central Ohio a little bit. Not too much, though. Those guys have a little better 2.5 rules than we do, so they hand it to me pretty well when I go out that way.
Gotcha. Now, when you say better rules, what changes? What do you see different as you start to
turbo
travel?
rules.
Really?
They wanted our horsepower class to be very limited, so we're only allowed that 1/8-inch MWE groove on our turbos.
Right.
Everybody else is a quarter. That seems to make a pretty big difference.
Yeah. Any other big factors that are a change as you go through, or is that kind of the stickler?
That's your biggest one, I think. Out there, you're allowed to run weight boxes and stuff. We're not, but that's not a huge. As long as there's weight out front,
Yeah.
it's there. It's there.
Right. Sled pullers. Okay. I hear you. You gotta.
A lot of people love following polar guys and drag racing guys. How can we follow you on social media so we can see what you're up to?
Just Jimmy Hahn on Facebook, and then Instagram is just as original. Jimmy Hahn.
You want to spell your last name for everybody?
HAWN.
Pretty simple. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be everywhere this year. Ready to hit the quarter mile again. See what it'll do.
We're gonna blow up your inbox with friend requests, and it'll be fun for you. People keep an eye on you, and that's what this is all about. Because people want to have this content, and they want to be able to follow the guests on our show. And I can't tell you enough how many people have thanked us for starting this podcast and being able to interact with us this closely.
Absolutely. And we do want to say thank you to the listeners. Keep the Facebook comments coming. Keep the feedback coming. Definitely keep liking and sharing on iTunes, as we really do appreciate that. It's a huge deal for us on the podcast.
Our YouTube channel, though, subscribe to that. That is awesome that we're putting these episodes on YouTube. You mentioned before you can't really imagine how many people just stare at a screen with just a logo. But, they got their earbuds in, they're working, they got it connected. And if they have a Droid phone at this time, that's the only way to really listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody, we do appreciate you listening. Jimmy, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, safe
we really
travels
appreciate
back home.
having
Thank you.
Absolutely. This has been Paul Wilson.
And I'm Danny Voss.
Thanks for listening.
The Diesel Performance Podcast is brought to you by Calibrated Power Solutions, home of DuramaxTuner.com, developer of performance engine and transmission calibrations for a wide variety of late model diesel powertrains, including the Duramax, Cummins, John Deere, Jeep, and many more. For more information and the best customer service in the industry, check out calibratedpower.com or call 815-568-7920.
If you're going to be sled pulling, drag racing, doing burnouts in four-wheel drive, it really doesn't matter. You need tie rod sleeves.
Burnouts in four-wheel drive? Who the fuck does that? Like, someone's going to see that and be like, I'm going to buy Jack Tunes and we're going to do 4-dig burnouts. Like, it's just not going to happen. You know what type of troubleshooting you just fucking set up for us right there? Like, think about that. You know I'm right.